Hello, everyone. Welcome to Venus Fest's second keynote presentation with EZRA FURMAN Mentorship Program. Please feel free to ask questions in the live chat and interact, and we'll have time for a Q&A with Ezra at the end. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that Venus Fest takes place on the traditional unceded Indigenous territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Understanding that many of you may be watching from other locations, please take some time to learn about the history of the land on which you live, the indigenous land and water, and how you might participate in restoring justice. It is my immense honor to introduce EZRA FURMAN today, whose accomplishments are many, and she will be sharing about her path in music. Through 5 critically acclaimed solo albums, 3 albums with her former band, The Harpoons, as well as creating the original soundtrack for Netflix series Sex Education, EZRA FURMAN has amassed an arsenal of much-loved music, exploring themes of identity, religion, political angst, love, and anxiety. EZRA has become and the oppressed. EZRA has also written a book on Lou Reed's classic album Transformer and the relationship the record has with her own life and awakening as part of the 33 1/3 series. So without further ado, I am happy to pass the mic over to EZRA.
Hello. Okay. Can you hear me? Am I coming through just fine?
Sounds
this is
great.
Ground Control to Major Tom. Thank you. Thank you, Erin, for that lovely introduction. Thanks to Venus Fest for having me do this. I feel very honored. I feel very welcomed and appreciated. I don't get asked to speak usually. And it's something I haven't done much. Maybe you'll notice that as we go, that my skills as a speaker are unhoned. I'm more of a singer screamer most of the time. But I do feel very appreciated to be asked to share some experience and wisdom, especially for the people present and listening who are artists and developing artists, young developing artists. That's the term they told me that they use for you, developing artists, which I feel on a purely truthful level is a phrase that should apply to me. I'm an artist and I continue to develop. I'm a developing artist. But I've logged some time, you know. I have some experience to draw on. I gotta start with the main thing here. The main thing for me, and I'm not saying this to be contrary or to, I hope you don't find this frustrating if you're like looking for some advice. But I just think that advice is usually bad advice. Most advice is bad advice. And I really hesitate before giving it. I really, thinking about what to say that might be useful from my experience in showbiz. I'm like, really, I don't want to be one of those people who gives you advice that is not useful. Because frankly, you're your own person and you got your own situation. You got your own things that you want. You bring your own things to the table. There's actually not a model for your path. Everyone makes their own path. Like, this is not the insurance business. I don't know anything about the insurance business, so maybe I'm doing that dirty, but there's no like path that you have to take. Giving advice is tricky, you know? I don't think you should trust someone who seems to know definitively what you should do. Because how would they know that? How would they know that? They even if they know what you want, even if they know what you're capable of, maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the thing that people, everyone has their own path. I want you to internalize that. And so advice gets dispensed from me with many grains of salt. I just throughout doing music and trying to do it well and make it sustainable, so many people have given me advice, and so much of that advice kind of amounts to like, because that's what you do. That's what worked for this person. That's what you do. Like, there's a model for everybody. And sometimes those models work, but just sometimes they have nothing to do with you. That's what you do is like poison to me. Like, you have to do that. Somebody telling me you have to do that. Like, why? Why is that what everybody does? Does everybody do that, or just the people that you hang out with do that? And is that right for me? So I've begun by debasing the whole concept of this talk and saying there's no such thing as good advice. But I do think that there's some stuff that's happened to me and that I've learned that is potentially usable, and it's there for you to learn from it if you feel like it, if it feels useful to you. Now listen, when I was a teenager, I had a card that I like carried with me, and I wrote little quotes on it. I had like I slowly filled it up with like 20 different little quotes that seemed to guide me in a helpful way. And I'll share just one of those quotes. It is from a band you might have heard of called the Grateful Dead, which I've never been a huge fan of the Grateful Dead. It's, I don't know. They're not quite my style, not my thing. I was more into less, I don't know. They were never my favorite band. They had this line in the song Truckin' from 1971 or something. Sometimes the cards ain't worth a dime if you don't lay them down. And this line has just stayed with me a lot. And this is the first section of what I got to say to you. Sometimes the cards ain't worth a dime if you don't lay them down. I would actually take off the sometimes. The cards ain't worth a dime if you don't lay them down. Now, why that was helpful to me, I was shy as a teenager. In fact, I'm shy now. I felt like I had an inner world that made sense to me, that was full of, it was valuable. I had cool ideas. I had cool opinions and tastes in music. And I guess I slowly started to realize no one cares if you don't show off. And then, you know, it was against my nature to show off. So I needed this line to be written down on a card in my pocket. The cards ain't worth a dime if you don't lay them down. I think how that translates, I really feel like I'm addressing the artists solely. That's like who this is for. I went with like when I started to write songs, I was like 14, 15. I started to write songs that I was like, I think these are cool. There's something to this. And I went to open mics. That's what I did. That's where my performance life happened. I went to bars with my dad because I couldn't get into the bars usually alone unless I was, I had to be accompanied by an adult. Dad, God bless him, took me to open mic, and I just did like as I could do. And then in college, me and my friend who I had in college who wrote songs, we just looked for all the open mic nights, and we were like, let's do all of them, any of them. And you'd have to, you see people doing like Imagine by John Lennon on an acoustic guitar with the wrong chords, and you wait till you get your moment on the list to play your 2 songs. And it was, I guess really why I'm talking about that is to talk about this dichotomy that I see in artists. There's sort of 2 different ways that creative people go. One is perfectionism, and one is anti-perfectionism, and or maximalism, or I don't know what to call it. And I think they both have their merits, okay? But for me, perfectionism was like poison. Perfectionism was poison because I didn't think I was good. If my standard was be very good, try to be like people who are great at this, I knew I was falling short and I felt embarrassed. But if my standard was like, it actually seems like I'm the only person, the only 15-year-old I know who writes songs, and I'm not doing John Lennon's Imagine with the wrong chords at an open mic. I'm doing my own cool thing that I wrote. That was a satisfying standard. I beat some adults at music. That's how it felt to me. But sorry, I'm not a seasoned public speaker. I was just like, more. I want to play open mics. And when I started to have a band, which was when I was 19, we were like, we want to play as much as possible. We will play anywhere. We don't care. And that continued. Really, that was my attitude, like almost throughout my whole 20s, just like yes to everything, just say yes to everything. Because you've got to lay down the cards in front of as many people as you can before one of them, for anyone to say, hey, that's worth something. And then while you do that, you're getting better every time, So I know perfectionists, okay? And I know perfectionists who have done a great job, and I'm jealous. Obviously, everyone's jealous of like the people. I don't know. The Strokes' first album is like a stunning, perfect creation, and they held back and they made it perfect. And they didn't get started right away. They were perfectionists about it, and they took some, 2-3 years trying to make that album. I don't find that approach useful. that like it's got to be perfect. I'm like, I made an album. I put out an album when I was 20, and I put another one out when I was 21, and another one when I was 23. I wanted to do one every year. That's started to be a little bit of an ambitious standard, I guess. But yeah, I feel that more is better. Always show off. Lay down the cards. Now, I'm going to take a second. I see. Okay. I wasn't seeing your comments because I was on the wrong little tab. It's really helpful to know. For a second, I was like, I could be, is this, it says live in the corner. Can anyone hear me? That's a very independent artist kind of feeling to have. So there are these comments. You know, as you can see, I'm sure you can make comments. You can ask a question. I think when I'm done speaking, sorry, I haven't shepherded you properly through this experience, but I think that Aaron is going to cull some questions to ask me at the end of when I've spoken for a little bit. And so I think you can ask them whenever, and we'll try to get to that. Okay, I have this thing. Here's another reason I always hated when I was when I was more in the category that most people would think of when they think of a developing artist. I was always annoyed at the way people talk about, like, you know, how they got to where they are, because I'm like, I need to know the details, like, and they'd always, there's this impulse among people who have been successful. They're just like, I don't know, it just kind of fell into my lap and it just kind of happened. And I think, like, sometimes that's true. Usually that's not true. Usually it's almost never true. Like, it's like tons of work and like meeting this person at this time, et cetera, et cetera. This happened at this time, right? There's a story. There's a real story. They know. They're saying they don't know. Just they know. The only thing so I'm trying to I was spending the afternoon trying to somehow write down in notes to myself for this, like, what part of this story, what specific parts of this story are actually relevant, And I think the relevant concrete details are like who I met when in doing this. Okay. One thing that happened is that I played a bunch of open mics, when I was a teenager. And when I was like 18, before I went to college in the Boston area at Tufts University. Before I went to college, I think it was the summer before, I played an open mic at this venue. The guy who booked the venue was like, what you did just now was good. And I managed, he just gave me a card. He was like, if you want to do like a music career, I could like do you one or two favors or something, And he was like, I manage this other band. I book this venue. He was the booker at that venue. So he gave me this card. I was like, okay, dude, I'm 18 years old. I'm going to call somebody who gave me a card and be like, I want your help. No, I was not ready for that. I waited, I think, over a year, but I kept the card and I called that number over a year later. And I was like, remember you saw me at that open mic at that venue? And I think he was like, I think so. That guy turned out to be a guy who became my manager and became a really close friend. And the thing that I got lucky with him, I mean, I guess I got lucky in a bunch of ways. This guy changed my life. Mitch Marlowe. Thank you, Mitch Marlowe. He was my manager for 8 years. And, you know, he was managing another band, and he was just sort of in the music industry in Chicago, where I'm from. And the important thing about him is that he got my thing. He got where I was coming from. He saw what was cool about me. He thought the same kind of music I liked was cool. I thought the same kind of music he liked was cool. We just were like, we are friends. We can talk about music. It just happened that way, even though he was 20 years older than me. And I would say, if you want to work with anybody, a musician, a professional of some kind, just work with people who get you. You have to, that is like the thing. If you feel like you have conversations with somebody who you're like, maybe this person is going to be an important person in my life, and they like don't get what you're about, or you're like talking past each other, or their ideas make no sense to you, that's probably not the person. That's what I think. I'm just saying it was really valuable to me to have this person. We had like 2-hour phone calls where we like mostly talked about cool records that we both liked, you know? And then we were like, you know, making plans of what might happen next with my little band that I had started. And anyway. The other good thing about Mitch is that he understood that I was not making money, and I was not going to pay him a bunch of money. And he was managing another band. He was doing other work. And that is why he was able to be my manager when I didn't make any money at all for years and years, because he was into it, and he had a little extra time, and he had another thing bringing in money. So I'm just saying, there's a lot of folks who are like, you need a manager, you need a booking agent. The question is, why do you need those things? Do you need those things? I had one. I had one from the time I was 19 or 18 or something. It worked for me. It's not required. I just want you to know, please understand. A manager or booking agent, I know they are like staples. Everyone's like, you got to have that. You only want to have that if you're making enough money to pay yourself and then pay them also. This is like economy. It's like, I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, there are some people, for instance, the legendary Steve Albini, who I feel like is some kind of guiding light to me. I don't think he's always right. He's got a lot of opinions. Steve Albini is a Chicago recording engineer, and punk rocker. And he's like, you don't need a manager. You don't need a booking agent. What does the booking agent do? The booking agent emails the venue and books the show. You could email the venue. You do it. You keep the money that you would pay a booking agent. Okay, Steve, like, it's like not quite that simple, but in a lot of cases, especially early times in a career, it is actually that simple. You want to play a show, you can probably ask the person who books the shows, hey, can we play a show? Here's a link to my thing I recorded. Whatever. You don't need these things. You don't, like, that's back to the opening point of when somebody says, because that's what you do, because that's what you got to get, that's what you got to do. Ask why, and ask if you definitely need, like, do you? Do you want to pay somebody to do that thing? Anyway, the other hard part of giving advice is like, I like where I am now and where I've ended up as a musician, and this is the way I make a living, and I love it, even though I have complaints, and it's not all bunt cake and Skittles. That's not an expression. That's an original. But I like where I am now. Would I recommend the way I spent my 20s to someone who's 20? I don't know. I really don't know. I enjoyed myself some of the time. I went through hell some of the time. You know, I didn't do anything. I feel that the only thing that I have relied on really is like showing a lot of people my music in various ways, like making another record, playing another show, and then also thinking like, how do I make this good? How do I make this like really good and I like it by my own standards? What I'm saying is, I just like kept doing it, even though like a lot of people would have said like, you're not succeeding. You're like, you can't afford hotel rooms when you go on tour, and you're like, you've been doing this for 7 years now, and I don't know. I think I had a little bit of privilege coming from, my parents had money. I mean, they were never paying my rent. They were never, I was never on my parents' money when, like, after I was on my parents' money when I went to college, and they, anyway, I come from a lot of privilege. I've got that lucky thing coming from money. Sorry, I'm like really getting rambly. I'm really getting rambly. But like, I'm just saying, the path leads through the mud. For me, I've gone through a lot of misery being a musician, and I don't want to sugarcoat it. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Took a long time, I still, okay. That economy stuff is really important to me. Like your budget. I'm sorry, just a couple more things. Like your budget is how much money you have, This is, I guess I'm cribbing this from Steve Albini's playbook, but like, if you have $200, your budget is $200, and don't spend more than that. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it is that simple, even though it looks like other people are spending more. We played in Coachella. My band, we played at Coachella in 2017. I'm still so proud of us. We roll up in a minivan and the drummer's girlfriend's hatchback with a bunch of like equipment that is like duct taped together. We've got no sound engineer. We're at Coachella, like I don't know, like Kanye West is there, and we're just rolling up with everything taped together, and it's like, I don't know, this is our band. This is how we do it in a 200 capacity venue, and this is how we're going to do it here. And like, whatever, maybe the sound engineer at that point might have been a smart idea, but I was so proud at how low budget we are, how much we save money. And then, don't tell anybody, but they gave us a bunch of like guest wristbands. We sold every one to rich kids who wanted to go to Coachella. We sold like artist guest wristbands to local rich kids. And that's how we made a profit on that little venture. Okay, part 3. And this is the last part before Q&A. Part 3 starts with a story from when I was 19 years old. And a story about, So I formed my first band. It was called EZRA FURMAN and the Harpoons when I was 19 in February 2006. 2006. And that summer, my manager, as I said, managed this other band. They were called the Red Walls. They were playing at Lollapalooza. They were doing well. They had opened for Oasis. They were playing at Lollapalooza. He gave me a pass, a backstage pass to Lollapalooza. My manager did. And he said, here, like, take some copies of your little demo CD that you made in your dorm room that is like a mess because you made it with no help and with no money, and just hand it out to people. Hand it out to like performers at the festival. Go up to Ben Queller, give him a CD. And I was like, okay, gonna try and do this. I was going around in terror. I was so intimidated and starstruck by all these people. The Raconteurs are playing there. Jack White is sitting on around in a circle of chairs. Jack White, who, like, to me, that's the most rock star person I could have imagined at that age when I was 19. I mean, still, what a rock star, like, and he was an idol to me. And it was like, I'm gonna just go up to Jack White, I'm gonna hand him a demo CD, and then maybe he'll like be Basically, I did this for a day at Lollapalooza. It's a 3-day festival. By the end of the first day, I was like sick. I was like, this is the worst experience of my life. This is pure anxiety. I don't want to do this. These people don't want to talk to me. They're famous. What is this demo that I have? And I was like almost in tears, And then my mom, God bless my mother, saw how upset I was when I came home. And she was like, she said stuff I wish I could remember how exactly she said it, but this is stuff that I keep with me to this day. This is the best advice I've ever gotten from my mom. She was like, this is like crushing your spirit right now. And your spirit and the thing that makes you you is actually the only thing that you have. It's the most important thing that you have. If your spirit is broken by like trying to be a success at music, you won't be able to play music anymore. You won't be good at it because you'll have a crushed spirit. And it's reverberated. First of all, it was the sweetest and nicest thing. She gave me permission, just like, you don't need to do this. Just on that day, it was so kind of her and loving. But it's something that is true everywhere in a music career. Like, the thing that, it's not just that, like, you don't want to be sad because that'll like grind you down and make you not want to do it anymore. It's like, actually, what an artist brings to the table, the reason that is a kind of a job is that each artist has a thing from their soul, has some soul stuff to give out to the world, and maybe that sounds like mystical, maybe it sounds sentimental. Even if you're just talking about what you think is cool, That's like why there's a music business that makes people like rich record executives, you know? Because there's people who have a thing to offer that comes from their soul. All right, you know, a band I love, Big Star. There's a band called Big Star, and they've got a song called The Ballad of El Goodo, one of my all-time favorite songs ever. And I always remember this verse in it where they say, it's, I mean, you should listen to that song overdone if you haven't heard it. The Ballad of El Goodo by Big Star. But he sings, they stand you, they dress you down and stand you in a row, but you know you don't have to. You can just say no. And there ain't no one going to turn me around. But you don't, it's something I keep with me. You know you don't have to. You can just say no. That applies to everything. You'll just be going around, you go to some radio station, and they're like, you got to say this for our radio station. Just record yourself saying this. And you don't have to do that. You go to a festival, they're like, I remember it took me so long to understand this. It took me so long to understand this. I was like 28 or something, and like at this festival in England, and they were like, okay, now like you've got to just like perform a couple these few songs on film in front of this, and I'm not joking here, Ovaltine logo. Ovaltine, the hot chocolate. And it was like, just stand on this little stage. We're going to film you doing a song with Ovaltine in the background, even though that's like not like you were booked for the show, and the show that's not the show that was for the festival. And I was like, no. And they were like, no. And I was like, no. And they were like, okay. And then I didn't have to do it. I'm just saying, even if my only reason that I didn't want to do that, I don't think Ovaltine's a bad company. My only reason was like, that seemed not cool to me. That just seemed like not a cool thing to do. And I want to stress here, that is an extremely serious reason not to do something. Because if you're an artist, your world that you built of stuff that you think is cool is what you are offering to your audience. And if you're going to dilute that with something that you don't think is cool, that is a cost. That is a cost that you have to have a real reason to do, like a real reason. And if the reason is like, you're supposed to do this because you're just supposed to, that's not a reason. You know, sometimes thousands of dollars is not a good enough reason. What you think is cool matters. What feels like it's crushing your soul, don't do those things. I mean, maybe sparingly once in a while, there's a reason to do something that feels like it's crushing your soul. I'm just telling you the stakes. The stakes are your perspective as an artist. Like the thing that you're there to provide. I think I've said most of the stuff that I scribbled down. I forgot to do it at the beginning, and I'm going to do it now. I'm talking to you on land that was stolen from the Massachusetts and Pawtucket tribes in the Boston area. That this is stolen land, and we're working toward justice for that. Lots to say there. And I won't say it. I'll ask Aaron if Aaron will to maybe feed me a couple of questions in case there's any questions that people want to hear answered. Is that all right?
Amazing. Yes.
Are we okay on time and stuff? And
We're so good. Yeah, everything is beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing about your story.
such a ramble, I know.
No, it was like the best kind of ramble. I love hearing your advice from your mom because I'm just gonna like take that in as if she's my mom. That was really beautiful.
It like still guides me and gets me emotional to tell you about that.
Yeah, can feel like how deep that support is. It's really wonderful to hear about. We have a couple of questions in the chat. One from Rob, who says, "Hi, Ezra. I'm curious if you could talk about the role of the city of Chicago in your journey, a city I miss dearly right now."
A city what? A city?
I guess a city that he misses dearly right now. He just wants
Oh,
to hear about Chicago for you.
I miss it dearly too. I love Chicago. Yeah, Chicago, even though I feel like I started really, I mean, when I was a teenager and living in the Chicago suburbs in Evanston, I was doing open mic nights and stuff. So Chicago was part of it. And then I met that guy, Mitch Marlowe, who was deep into new stuff about the Chicago scene. You know, a lot of stuff traces to Chicago for me. But I first formed a band in this Boston area that I'm in now. And yeah, I just said, I guess because I was from Chicago and later moved to Chicago again, it seems like the city where I learned how, I don't know, what being a musician is. And I had that model. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say what, like, you know, it's hard to say what would have happened in Chicago versus other places. But I do feel a special thing about Chicago is that it's the big city. It's a huge city. And there is, like, especially in the entertainment industry, it doesn't see itself as that big a city. It doesn't see itself as the center of any world. Sometimes it's got a chip on its shoulder about that, you know, but in a kind of a lovable way. I feel like coming from Chicago made me more tuned into that way of seeing yourself, like not your. I'm into the model of like you just do what you do, and the audience for it is small, and you get better and better at it, and then you organically grow an audience. You don't like go to New York and step into the office of the #1 record label and get the #1 person to give you I don't know, to open the gates of the music industry to you. I don't think, maybe that happens, but I feel grateful that like I didn't have that much inclination to wait for that. Even though I did spend a lot of time fantasizing about like, oh, if this blog would just give us such a good review and everything would start happening for us. I mean, but that was also, yeah, a thing beaten out of me early because like I thought the biggest deal in the world would be signing to a record label of any kind, and then we got a record deal, and it was like, oh, life is the same, but now we get to make a record and play the same shows that we were playing before. Life is the same. So like every gate that I thought would like usher me in, it was like, oh no, I still just have to work at this really hard. And there's something Chicago-y about that to me. Like somehow that is like how Chicago artists know to see themselves. Sometimes to our detriment, or like sometimes people are very under ambitious in a way in Chicago. And anyway, I don't know. Maybe that's an answer to a question about Chicago. And the other thing is, well, there's a lot more. The blues, the music of Chicago, blues and jazz of Chicago is just like got in there for me really, really young. I got super into blues when I was in my late teens, and that was from living in Chicago, where like you just pick up the newspaper and there's like an article about Howlin' Wolf or something.
Yeah, can definitely hear that influence in your work for sure.
I don't know.
So we'll do maybe one more question from Amanda, who says, distribution, admin, publishing, if presented with all three deals from your choice of label, which would you choose and why?
Whoa.
That's a big question.
Whoa. I don't know if I know. I don't know if I know when we're talking about those three things. I don't even know. Like when you ask me that question, I'm like, I know those are categories of things that record labels can do. I like resist thinking of them as like as categories like that. I have some inclination to be like, yo, a record label is some people and maybe they can do something cool for you. Like it's true they have systems of I've been wrestling with this. Like, why have a record label exactly? Why exactly have a record label? What are they doing for me? Could I do these things in other ways? Could I? Yes, maybe this record label has a pool of money and they can buy an ad in the subway for my record. Maybe I could find or borrow that money and buy that ad myself if I wanted that ad in the subway. Maybe I should be making those decisions. Maybe I should be making those phone calls to those people who will put that ad there, and charge you for it. And that is what I think about. And I think the reason I remain on a record label, at least for now, is for their systems and connections. That they already have a standing deal with the person who sells that space in the subway. You know what I mean? Like they're going to do it more efficiently. And they've already, I almost want to say like they've already done it. And like how much of my day do I want to be like hustling through doing all of the mechanics myself, or like me and my manager doing them all myself? Is that part of it? That is part of it. I don't know. I'm just like, you've opened like a can of worms that I'm like thinking about a lot right now. I think record labels do exist for a reason. I think you gotta approach with a lot of caution and ask questions about everything. And if you and actually hire somebody to ask questions about everything, like meaning a lawyer. I don't know. That's not an answer to your choose one of these three, but I guess honestly though, the answer is probably distribution. It's probably distribution because that's where they've got the most connections with systems I don't have connections with. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that right now, I suppose.
I think that's an awesome answer because it's a really complex question, and there are so many ways that labels exist and like ways that artists have relationships with labels. And so it is almost like every situation or every label relationship is completely different. So I think
that's right. Yeah. And even, every label is different, and every artist on that label is different and like uses the tool of the label in a different way. And the only thing, I don't know, the thing that really sticks in my mind about record labels is just like, know what's going on and why. Know what's going on and why. And be friends with them if you want to, but don't be friends with them first. That's a business relationship. I've had a little bit of I've had conflict with every label I've ever been on to some degree. I love my current label, Bella Union, a lot. But I have had conflict with them, and it's like, you gotta stick up for yourself. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, no shade on Bella Union. Bella Union is like great, has changed my life, and I love being on that label.
Totally. Okay, thank you. I want to say thank you on behalf of everyone in the chat. People are now chiming in with many thanks too in the live chat.
I don't know our time limits, but
well, I feel like we're at maybe a natural closing point, if that feels comfortable for you. And we're close to 8 in Eastern time, in our time in the world. So yeah, I'll say a big heartfelt thank you to you for sharing your perspective on your journey. And it's really amazing to just hear about the way some of those pieces have woven together for you to bring you where you are now, and excited to hear where you go next. Thank you everyone also for tuning in. For more information about Venus Fest, you can go to venusfest.net. And we have a third and final keynote presentation with Canadian artist Iskway on August 18th. So you can follow our YouTube channel if you want to watch that. So thank you again, Ezra. And
thank you so much for having me, and thanks for for making this exist.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.